Call to order the regular board meeting of March 19th, 2018 at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be given by the Anchor Bay Junior Air Force ROTC. Please rise.
Carry. Notch. Forward. March. Post. Colors. Reset. Arms. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arms. Ready. Face. Guide out.
Thanks, Frank. Item number three, roll call. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echevetti.
Here.
Treasurer LaFata.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Demink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg. Here. Clerk Berry is here.
All members are present. Item four, department reports. Welcome, Assistant Director Johnson.
Good evening, Board. Just a brief comment about we all know last week there was an issue with New Baltimore and the small water issue they had that has since been cleared up. Just to make sure all of our residents know that we were in no way tied to that concern that they had in their water. We did contact the DEQ. All of our tests did come back as not detected, meaning they did sampling and this chemical was not found in the water. So just make sure everyone's clear. We did have some residents who were concerned that all, systems are looped and tied together, which is true. We all have emergency connections that tie each other in case of emergencies, but all those valves are always shut down until we need to use them. So our mains are connected, the valve is closed, so the water actually is not touching. Their water is separate from our system. So I want to make sure everyone knows that we have the reports at the DPW, so if anybody has they want to see the report, or if we can email to them or mail it to them, they can contact the DPW at 586-949-0400, extension 3. Just ask for the reports pertaining to the water quality, pertaining to that specific item that was in New Baltimore's water, and I can get them those reports so they can see that we were fine. Are there any questions on that at all? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any further departments that would like to give us updates? Now's the time to do it. Item 5 is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda are permitted. Tonight's consent agenda include 3 items. 5A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 5th, 2018, approval of the agenda, and approval of the payment of bills as submitted by Finance Department.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 6E from the regular agenda.
Motion by Clerk Berry.
6E or 6E?
6E, like Edward. I beg your pardon. You're correct, 6D. Thank you.
6D as in dog,
6D is in dog, yes.
which is the RICO copier item is going to be removed. Motion by Clerk, did you support that?
I'll support it.
Motion by Clerk Berry, support by Trustee Demink to approve the consent agenda as stated with the removal of item 6D from the regular agenda. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Echevetti.
Aye. Motion prevails. 6A, approve a request by the Public Works Department to purchase a water main asset management software package for the existing Sudaroo Asset Management Program for a cost of $15,732. I'll make a motion to approve as stated.
Support?
Motion by Supervisor Akavetti, support by Clerk Barry. Assistant Director Johnson.
All right, good evening again, Board. Just to let you know, as a reminder, we did, again, get this software initially through the SAW grant. It did pay for the sanitary sewer portion side of the program, not the water side. We are really excited to be using it for the opportunity for the water side because of the fact that it will help us to be able to track our asset management in terms of keeping track of any time we do water breaks, valve replacements, hydrant repairs. They can keep track of all those functions based on the age of the water main. You know, obviously how many times we repair something, is it worth replacing as opposed to repairing again? And it can really help us isolate. For example, one of the portions is if we have a water main break, it'll help us isolate, tell us what valves we got to shut off, make a quicker turnaround just to prevent water loss. You know, it'll save us a lot of money on water loss. So we are very excited to have this product, you know, and it's going to be tied into our GIS program, so it will use our GIS that's already being built. It's going to utilize that program, and from there, it's going to pull that in, and we can utilize that for the software. Are there any questions pertaining to this program?
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a question about who will be operating the system, the software?
The DPW will be operating it, so we actually have 6 iPads devices that we will be using in the field. So both our meter department, underground departments will be utilizing it. Anytime there's an issue with a water main or a valve, our guys will take the tablet in the field. We're able to, if there's a water break, be able to assess the water break, take a picture before, a picture after, and then write down the notes as to what we did, what type of water main, things like that.
So this is of a technical nature then to input data into the
Yes.
system?
Yes.
And then what kind of training will the users need?
There will
Is
be
that included?
Yes, there'll be a one-day training. Probably it'll be 4 hours for the field workers to be how to use the software, and then there will be a 4-hour training for the management, which would be more like JR and myself, or Don Coddington and myself, to kind of learn the ropes of how to schedule appointments or repairs and such, because you can schedule things with the software too. So if a hydrant needs repair, we can schedule it to a department and they can proceed to repair the work using this software.
Okay, and is the last question about that, is that something that the support staff in your department would also access to be able to answer questions and address issues, or is it more technical for the youth?
It'd be more technical, yeah. It'd be more used by our department, you know, by JR and myself. We'd be pulling the reports off of it and such, and the gentleman in the field would be utilizing it to collect the data, if you will.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Joseph.
Just a question about the cost. So when we originally budgeted this, we knew after the SAW grant that it really only would cover the sewer side and not the water. The intention was to bring this on board. Did we just run out of money in this particular fund? Because I see that we budgeted $10,000 and it's the cost of this is nearly double that or over double that. So are we losing money there, or did we just misbudget this, or was the cost more than we anticipated? What was the reason for the double?
It was just, I think it was just we didn't budget for it. We just didn't budget for it. I don't know if we were planning on implementing it that fast, so we ended up, through getting the GIS up and running, we were able to move this faster than anticipated. I know this year we're really ramping up, going mobile and being more technologically savvy through using the Laserfiche and this as well. We're trying to push our department to go more mobile so we can utilize blueprints, all this stuff in the field to be more versatile, so we're not having to come back to the DPW every time we have an issue. We can stay in the field and work on a project, saving us drive time and really condensing our time frame in terms of repairing and getting water turned back on to a resident, you know, trying to speed up our processes.
So just to follow up if I may, Mr. Supervisor, so if this item really we weren't planning to make this in an 18, purchase, what was the $10,000 earmarked for in the budget on this particular line item? What are we going to go without?
At this time, I apologize, I don't recall at this time what it was earmarked for. I apologize.
Okay.
I could find an answer for you that and get it for you tomorrow, though. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just a question on, the item on the agenda has listed program cost of $15,732, but in the back of documents, it's $20,232. So was there something that changed there, was just a
Yeah,
typo?
I meant to upload the right file, upload the wrong file, so it's supposed to be 20,232, because when I got the quote, I meant to have an extra piece in there that wasn't in there. So I meant to omit this page, and I forgot to omit it, so that was my error on that, in that regard.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Treasurer LaFatta.
Would it be possible, we're investing in technology, and I'm kind of interested every time we start making investments, of what our return on investment's going to be. And would it be possible, say a month or so after this is installed and complete, that you come back and report to the board and tell us what kind of efficiency gains we actually we got from, based on our investment? In other words, how many occurrences we have and what this actually did for us in, say, a month or 2 months time frame after it's installed.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd actually like to, we could do that. On top of that, we could actually do a brief presentation and show you exactly how we would use it. If there were a hypothetical emergency, we could actually bring up an issue and present it to you as how it would work, and could save us time. We could absolutely do that for you.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Clerk Berry.
Sorry, one additional follow-up question. I saw that part of that $20,232 is the $4,732 for the annual subscription cost?
Yes.
Is that locked in for any certain period of time? Or do we anticipate that that's going to, we're going to be seeing that every year and it may change a little bit, or is that a static amount?
That is a static amount from March 18 to February 19. So what happens is we did get licenses that we paid through the SAW grant. We got 2 years of the licensing. So we have some licenses through the sewer and then some through the water. And what's going to happen is when this gets implemented next year in February or March-ish timeframe, we're going to take all those licenses, we're going to package them and get a better pricing on it. So when we get the annual cost, we can reduce the cost. So right now, those licenses are for the water. There is an annual cost for the sewer. So the estimations roughly, I would say, somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000, let's say, for all the licenses. They said we can put those together, package them, and get a better deal on that on an annual basis. So we're going to revisit that next year and get that taken care of.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further board comments? Any comments from the public? I'm going to amend my motion to approve a request by the Public Works Department to purchase a water main asset management software package for the existing Cedaroo Asset Management Program at a cost of $20,000, that's 20,
Yes.
$232.
My apologies on that.
Continued second.
Motion by, amended motion by Supervisor Akavetti, continued support by Clerk Berry. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFatta.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
6B, approve a request by the Clerk's Department to renew the annual membership for SEMCOG, the Southeastern Michigan Council of State Governments, for a cost of $5,192.
Move to approve.
Motion by
Support.
Supervisor Vosberg, support by, motion by Trustee Vosberg, support by Trustee Joseph. Discussion. Motion by Trustee Vosberg, support by Trustee Joseph to approve the request by the Clerk's Department to renew the annual membership to SEMCOG for a cost of $5,192. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFatta.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. 6C, approve a request from IT to upgrade our Microsoft SQL server licensing to the 2017 edition per BSNA Software Solutions recommendation from General Ledger account number 101-265-8984. Do I have a motion?
Support.
Motion by, I'll make a motion, support, motion by Supervisor Akavetti, support by Treasurer LaFatta. Deputy Treasurer
This license is to upgrade, our BSNA software can only run on SQL Server licenses. And when we started to move our BSNA to its own server, they recommended that we upgrade our, the SQL Server license to the 2017 to make it better operate, faster, more efficient. And upon their recommendation, we went out and got a couple quotes, and this is our lowest quote.
Comments from the board? Comments from the public? Motion by Supervisor Echeverri, support by Treasurer LaFata, to approve the request from IT to upgrade the Microsoft SQL Server licensing to the 2017 edition per BSNA Software Solutions recommendation. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echeverri.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink. Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you, Ms. Clerk. 6D has been removed from the agenda. That brings us to 6E. Discussion by the board on Chesterfield Township employees carrying firearms in the workplace. As the question was asked of the Township Board by Megan Burke, the Human Resources Manager. Do I have a motion to open it up for discussion?
Motion to open for discussion?
Yes.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Anderson. Discussion. Treasurer LaFata.
You gotta take a vote
Oh, no,
to put it for discussion, right?
absolutely. Motion?
I'm just,
Yeah.
It's a law and order guy.
Yeah, you don't let anything get by. Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Trustee Anderson, to open the discussion of Chesterfield Township employees carrying firearms in the workplace. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Echeverri.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye.
We are open for discussion. Treasurer LaFata.
There was a question asked of our human resource manager of whether or not employees would be able to carry while they're in the employee of the township. There was an email that went out to all the board members. I didn't see an answer, so I thought it was important to at least have some discussion on it. Based on some of the research on the subject, there is a state law that says that the township can have a no carry of employees in the township. If the township does not have a policy, our liability carrier is on record saying that they won't carry us if there's a situation where there's bodily harm. And if the township doesn't do anything, they're going to allow, it would allow the employees to follow their Second Amendment rights and carry. So you either have a policy and employees can't carry, or you don't have a policy and under their Second Amendment rights, they can. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So it's basically up to the board to give an answer to our Human Resource Department. That's why I put it on the agenda. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board?
Yeah, Mr.
Trustee Anderson.
Supervisor. Response from the insurance, the Risk Control Department, Risk Control Service, which handles the township's insurance. They sent a letter to the township, and basically, and I'll quote it, a government agency is afforded the privilege of governmental immunity from tort liability if and only if they are engaged in a governmental function as it relates to the essential elements of service you provide to the public. the entity and/or its employees engaged in an activity outside the scope of their duties are not afforded such immunity. With that being said, there could be a question of coverage afforded to employees whose actions result in an incident where the direct cause was determined to be the carrying or discharge of a weapon while in the course and scope of their duty, unless an employee is a law enforcement certified. The Risk Control Department strongly recommends that the township not allow any employee except the law enforcement certified personnel to carry a firearm which, while acting on behalf of and within the scope of their employment with the Chesterfield Township. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board?
Yes.
Trustee Joseph.
Yes, thank you. So, one, I want to thank Mr. LaFata. I know since he's, from the time that he was in the audience and coming to the podium, he's been a very strong advocate for his township, and he is committed to the best interest of the residents that he serves. And in this instance, it boils down to, I think very neatly, what Trustee Anderson just spoke about, and this is potential liability to the township residents. There's been some discussion, some kind of caucusing that's gone on, and individual discussions between board members, and I've heard some feedback that talked about the Second Amendment. I've heard some feedback that talked about gun-free zones, and certainly there's a lot of discussions about guns, in the national media and certainly locally. The issue for me, and I am, for the record, very pro-Second Amendment, this is not a Second Amendment issue in the same way that the ability for a township employee to come in and stand at the middle of their desk and begin to berate the supervisor or their fellow co-workers and claim First Amendment protection. So there are rules in the workplace that are designed to really address what it is that we're trying to do, which is serve the community. The difference between my ability to carry as a private citizen and my ability to carry a firearm in the workplace is that as a private citizen, I am guaranteed under the Second Amendment the right to bear arms and protect myself and my family. And I'm in a position of, I wouldn't say vulnerability, but there are rules in the workplace, and as the employer is obligated to provide a safe working environment and also send individuals out to perform services in a variety of capacities. So we tell the employee to go out into the field or to receive customers at the desk. We have a duty of care on some level to provide a safe environment. When we send somebody out perhaps to shut off water service to a customer that hasn't paid, or we send our ordinance officer out to enforce ordinance on an improperly built structure, or any of these other areas, we send them out there and potentially they have an obligation to carry out their duties. We have an obligation to ensure that they're safe. We don't require them to carry with them a firearm to protect themselves. And we certainly have a duty of care to the residents that come in, employees who may not be properly trained in the way that a sworn officer is, create infinitely more potential for harm to residents and potentially themselves when they are carrying, in the commission of their duties. We send them out to enforce things, like I said, code enforcement, or another area. So we have children that come in this summer. They'll be coming to the park for camp. And I don't think that parents believe that their camp counselors are going to be carrying firearms. What do we do with any regulation? Chief Kirsten talked about in his one of his emails. Do we talk about the size of the weapon? Do we allow basically these? I think you cited this Desert Eagle. You can carry a 50 caliber. What are you carrying in the commission of your duties? Your primary job is defined. There's a description of your duties, and it is not protecting property with a firearm. At the end of the day, it boils down to a big, big liability for the township. I've looked over the proposal that was brought forward. It seemed to be very, very consistent with the wording, and I think did a very nice job of sort of defining the parameters. The insurance carrier talks about, the Risk Control Services Vice President, the correspondence that was included in our packet, indicates that the Risk Control Department strongly recommends that the township not allow any employee except law enforcement certified personnel to carry a firearm while acting on behalf and within the scope of their employment within the township. Proposed policy statement talks very, very directly about the township being committed to stand strong against firearms in the workplace and to maintain a firearm-free workplace by prohibiting the transportation, carrying, or possession of firearms by township employees in the course of their employment. The policy starts with the obligation of this board, which is to maintain a work environment that is safe for all persons, including members of the community, and conducive to attaining high work standards. I think this is a very simple fix that's long overdue, and it does require a simple policy consistent with the one that was presented to us. Basically just saying we are not going to allow employees to carry firearms. It's not safe for a multitude of reasons. It's not a Second Amendment argument. It's not a gun-free zone argument. It is simply we send people out to do their duty. Carrying a gun is not part of it. And this policy, I think, does a very nice job of summarizing that. So I would strongly recommend that we move from the discussion phase into a policy phase, and I'll wait to hear feedback from other board members.
That wasn't a motion to approve the attached policy statement.
Well, I'd like to make a motion, but I'd also, in the past, I don't want to stifle discussion and debate. I know other people feel strongly about this as well, so I'd like to hear if anybody else has an opinion, or members of the public that have an opinion, and then maybe if you could revisit this with me for the possibility of a motion.
Any further comments from the board? We'll keep it up here for a couple minutes, sir. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I understand the desire to maintain a safe workplace. I understand the concerns that are laid out in the information that was provided to us. But I think the real concern from what I'm hearing is the question of liability. And how do we protect the township and its taxpayers from additional risk or liability based on the potential actions of employees. And my question, one of the questions that I would like to ask the insurance agent is, how would it make a difference if one of our employees used another implement to cause harm? Does that matter? Does it matter that an implement would be a firearm? For example, we are not covered, even though we are covered for employees who drive township-owned vehicles. That is part of our policy. We are not covered if that employee goes to lunch and has enough alcohol to become legally drunk, takes that vehicle, and causes harm. Gross negligence is not covered. That is an exception, an exemption in our policy. So how is that vehicle any different? And I think it's valid to have concerns about exposure and liability. However, I think perhaps taking a look at firearms is too narrow a focus. If our concern is to protect the township and its residents and taxpayers from additional liability. I understand that, and I think that's a concern that we legitimately should have. The policy itself, I think, is considerably insufficient in a couple of areas. There is not enough definitions, for example, of what an employee means. Does that mean elected officials? Just full-time elected officials? Does it mean that it applies to you when you walk into this building, whether you're a part-time or a full-time employee? Does it extend to election workers, election inspectors? Does it extend to people who sit on our Parks and Rec Commission, our Planning Commission? Zoning Board of Appeals, Board of Review, all those folks who sit on boards and commissions, does it extend to them? It doesn't define, for me, even if I supported the idea of the policy, which I do not, for a number of principled reasons, it doesn't adequately define what is meant by employee. And I think that that needs to be fixed at the very least. Also, it doesn't address some of the questions regarding what many of you may know as parking lot laws. For those of you who follow this particular issue, parking lot law basically says, may the employee who has a firearm, who has a license to carry that firearm, may they keep that weapon locked in their car in the parking lot of the township property. So they don't bring it into their workspace, but they keep it locked in their vehicle. This policy doesn't address that question either. And that's a legitimate concern. Because if we are not going to allow them to keep it in their locked vehicle, what we're saying to that individual is, you cannot carry that weapon from your house while you're driving to your job. And I think at that point, we're getting into an area where we're infringing on people's Second Amendment rights. Because now we're saying not only can you not carry it and protect yourself in your workspace, you cannot carry it from your house to the township property, either in your car, because you have nowhere to put it after that. There's nowhere to secure it here. You can't secure it in their car. But we haven't answered that question in this policy either. There's a number of other more minor questions that the policy doesn't address, but even if the policy were acceptable in its intent, I think that there's a lot of questions it doesn't answer that we need to answer, because there are certainly going to be follow-up questions. Even if this policy were adopted, employees are going to ask those questions. Well, can I keep it locked in my car? Or does it apply to the elected officials? Does it apply to someone who's here, continuing their duties, or at the planning commission or whatever? We need to be able to answer those questions. So I think that at the very least, there's probably some more work that needs to be done on the policy statement here. But from a principled perspective, I just don't think it addresses the concern, and the concern is the issue of extensive liability.
Quick comment from me. There was quite a bit of discussion on this when the question was raised, and a lot of thinking had to be done. The devil's in the details, as always. And I do believe this is a solution looking for a problem, and the solution is never as easy as it seems. If there's an incident, if there is a law-abiding concealed carry weapons permit holder as a township employee that has an incident, presumably a discharge of that weapon that resulted in bodily harm. Here we are 30, 40 years in, at least since 1998, we've had a shall issue situation in Macomb County and a shall issue situation in our state. Are members of our employee team carrying? Frankly, it's not my business, unless if it affects their work. If it's affecting, are there DPW workers in the hole with a firearm on them? Absolutely not. And if they are, it's affecting their work, and it would not happen. As a general principle, I think this is a Second Amendment issue. And I think I have very, very big concerns with trying to get the details of a policy like this. And the policy in front of us, I'm just going to read the first couple sentences of it. It is the policy of Charter Township of Chesterfield to maintain a work environment that is safe for all persons, including members of the community, and conductive to attaining high work standards. First sentence I agree with 100%. To achieve these objectives, the township is committed to a strong stand against firearms in the workplace. Unfortunately, you're losing me there. It is the township's policy to maintain a firearm-free workplace and prohibit the transportation, carrying, or possession of firearms by township employees in the course of their employment with Charter Township of Chesterfield. Here's why trying to take an issue as broad and as big as this into that, it's that statement is where I get lost. In that The CCW permit holders are some of the most law-abiding, responsible citizens in our constituency. There's a tremendous amount of responsibility comes with carrying a weapon if you are a CCW permit holder. I don't believe to create a safe work environment, the word safe zone was brought. That statement, this policy, if we can't find a way to thread the needle, essentially does that, in my opinion. When you read that, to achieve that objective, a strong stand against firearms in the workplace. So I read that as our township properties, the only people that could potentially legally carry a weapon are police officers, our public safety team, or constituents or residents that happen to have a CCW holder and be on the premises. So it's a philosophical discussion of what safety is, and I don't feel safe with that in that environment. It's not, it hasn't been raised in the year and a half I've been here, or in the 15 years that I've lived here, and when I represented this community in the legislature, that it was a problem of employees carrying a weapon. It's important to note this is if there's an incident. If there's a discharge of an employee that results in something, then we have potential liability issues. Well, I as a leader would have real issues as a human if I were to not allow individuals that get put in compromising situations, whether it's a code enforcement situation, whether it's a billing situation, a property dispute, that local level officials deal with every day and sometimes have to go out on the sites. If I did not allow an individual their right to defend themselves. And again, I don't see this being a big issue within our township. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's my thoughts on it. Maybe it was a little too much than we were looking for here tonight. Philosophically, as written, if we can't find a way to thread this needle, I'm just diabolically opposed to the statement as written. Any further another comment from the board? Treasurer Lovato.
It would not just limit people with CPL licenses. What you're doing is you would be allowing open carry. You would be allowing them to exercise their rights under the Second Amendment, which means anybody in the audience right now could be open carrying. They don't necessarily have to have a CPL license. The other thing is I think we're getting kind of off track. An employee is anybody that receives compensation from the township for an act. That is pretty simple. It's a definition that, look in your Webster, your Funk and Wagnall. I think we're stretching some of the terms that we're using. The problem is the liability act, is not going away. Somebody needs to address the fact that there is liability. Go back and, for an instance, there was a pallet that fell on somebody at Maynard's. Jeffrey Feiger sued Menards for $40 million. What's the lawsuit going to be here if one of our employees thinks that there's a risk and they shoot at somebody and they hit a resident and kills them? I understand people have rights under the Second Amendment, but at the same time, one incident and somebody could wind up owning a township. So you need to think in both directions, not just one. If you're not going to do one, then fix the other.
Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just again, the Second Amendment argument, I know that you've indicated that you think that it is principally a Second Amendment issue, but I would just ask you then, if in a meeting with a subordinate, they said to you, that's the stupidest policy I've ever heard, and would they have protection under the First Amendment? Because I can tell you, when I get called into a meeting with my boss and I'm given a directive, and I tell them how stupid I think the directive is, I don't think I'm going to successfully argue First Amendment protection. So there are constitutional modifications, if you will, when you accept the conditions of employment. And just, I was going to make the point of going through the Bill of Rights and ask you, with each amendment, is there any, but before we get into housing soldiers and pleading the Fifth and so forth, I think the point is made. The area that I'm most concerned about is your description and the assertion that you're sending people out for a compromising situation. And my argument is exactly the opposite, that we don't put people in compromising situations. And when we have issues that we think an employee's safety is in danger, we should put safety around them by saying at a public hearing that you, as the supervisor, believe that these employees are in compromising situations and less likely, less able to defend themselves without their decision of exercising their Second Amendment right is a very troubling issue because I think you've just given permission. This was a question. You said, are they? I don't want to know. I don't need to know. It's not my business to know. But you must now because you've been asked by your HR director to define because you have employees that have reached out. So I believe that we now, because of that, have an obligation to look at our potential liability. I don't think that the policy needs to be all-encompassing, no disrespect, Ms. Berry, because of course there are work rules about violence in the workplace. So do you need to ban knives? Do you need to ban, to make a policy that is inclusive of every, this is not that. This is simply a request by your insurance carrier. You want to talk about people that have researched things from an actuarial standpoint and a messiness standpoint. We're really talking about money. In the event of a lawsuit, as Mr. LaFata points out, we are vulnerable. Our insurance carrier has told us that. Our counsel has told us that. This is an area that I think, because there's been a request, needs to have an answer. And the answer is simply, as it's indicated in the policy statement, a commitment to a safe, firearm-free workplace. To the reasonable extent that we can enforce that, it starts with a basic policy that says exactly that. We don't want our employees carrying firearms because our principal concern is that you carry out your duties in the clerk's department or in the DPW, and in the areas where we think bad things may happen to you, we give you a vest made of Kevlar and we give you an ability to defend yourself, this township, its property, and so forth. All other jobs don't have that duty, don't have that sense of danger, unless we are saying definitively tonight that these are compromised situations and we don't want to limit somebody's ability, up to and including a firefight. So that to me is a problem. The policy is very simple and straightforward, and the fact that it hasn't happened before as an indicator that we have nothing to worry about is an equally flawed belief. Because if it happens, especially after this discussion, if it happens, I can guarantee you this record is going to come into somebody's court hearing because I think we're vulnerable here, and I think our insurance carrier has indicated we are, and it is a duty that requires action. And again, I think we should move forward on this very, very quickly.
Let's open it up to the public. State your name and your address, and
Yes.
stick to the topic at hand.
Alan Polkowski, 55415 Shire Road, Chesterfield. I have a farm in Chesterfield. Thank you. Honorable Township Supervisor Cavetti, ladies and members of the board, thank you for letting me have a chance to speak here today. A friend of mine, a good close doctor actually, his 10-year-old son was just diagnosed with cancer. He's in recovery now. And I've got 5 minutes to try to discuss how to cure cancer and why he got cancer, or am I supposed to stand here in 5 minutes? I'll do the best I can to talk about active shooter, safety, Second Amendment rights, firearm training, skills at arms. I'll do the best I can, but let's see if we can understand that possibly you may come to the conclusion I'd be uniquely qualified to discuss this topic with you today. But the main thing is I would ask the board respectfully, please do not accept this failed policy that you're putting in implementation. I only have 5 minutes. You can see me and discuss any time you want to after. Let me cover a couple things. Uniquely qualified, let me see if you just agree. United States Navy veteran after 8 years, honorably discharged. Law enforcement, a sworn officer for 12 years in 2 of the major sheriff departments in Michigan. I was a firearm trainer, law enforcement and military for the last 23 years. I also built and financed and designed, as many of you know, indoor shooting range and training facility here in Chesterfield, operated successfully for 3 years. Now I have one in Clinton Township, a training academy and an indoor shooting range. Also a Detroit public school teacher that I retired in good standing. November 10th, 1976, Betty McAllister was in my classroom probably when I was in the Navy, 1976. Her estranged husband came up the stairs in Byrd Elementary School, room 214, the room I was soon going to be assigned to for my entire career after I discharged from the Navy. He shot her in front of 6- and 7-year-olds, first grade students, in the classroom. He was let in. All the security measures were thought of, locking the doors. I only have 5 minutes. You can see me after, get the details, or you can check Wikipedia, like it's in there. But all those measures failed, and he came up and he shot his estranged wife in front of the first graders. The school teacher that was across the hallway from me, Miss Lutz, she would never come in my classroom because she was the person that found the body. I have always been concerned about the safety of others. I will tell you that the safety of every single employee in Chesterfield, not necessarily just as a taxpayer, but as a human being, I'm very concerned about their safety. This is a failed attempt. It's on narratives, it's just on the talking points of today. We would need to have many more discussions about this and security. There are many things that we can do for this, but I want to make sure that we cover a couple things. Let me go through some of the areas of discussion that we have here for the policy. The prohibited conduct and definitions. Remember that active shooters, they're going to select gun-free zones. You have an article in front of you, and there's many more like that. Even in the recent shooting in Parkland, Florida. The employees are sometimes even out in public, and they're often by themselves. The definitions, if you look at just firearm, we discussed allowed firearms, but you neglected, I don't know why. My wife and I, and I'm going to tell you things here that you're going to be either agreeing to or you're disagreeing. Not everyone agrees with us. When we testified in Lansing against constitutional carries, I hear a lot of the Second Amendment. It's well regulated if you look at the Second Amendment. We were against the open carry and concealed carry without the permit process. And one of the reasons why is that people don't have to go through the 68 misdemeanor background check in order to get that. But one of the other things that we were, the gun rights groups hated against us is because we talked about being responsible with firearms. I'll get to that shortly. But also, I did thank the state representatives at the time. Thank you, August of 2012, you allowed us to carry conductive electrical weapons as permit holders. I never see that. I'm one of the only ones that actually teach that course and have it, and I highly recommend it. Why are you putting in tasers being eliminated from your employees? They can, if you get the proper authorization, you can go up to 35 feet, and some of them fire up to 3 different sections of probes. You can take out 3 assailants, either out in the public or in here. There's many other ways, but why are you taking away? Why? Because it says here that a pneumatic gun, if you look at the research you have in front of you, and I've also passed out some associates, that it is considered a pneumatic gun, the taser, because nitrogen cartridges fire the probes. It's very effective. Officers have, in our different type of certification class we have, when I became an instructor, the instances of subjects as well as officers being injured have greatly reduced because of tasers. Why are you taking away tasers? Well, you're not considering the pepper sprays, allowing them to have them. There are many different things we can do, not just firearms. Why are you talking about that? So the next, I would not necessarily, the policy has a lot of issues. Second thing is, says here from Victoria Bauer, CPA, for the insurance. This type of activity could present a township with an unnecessary liability exposure and could also compromise the township's defense posture in the event of a claim. What about lives? Don't lives matter about injury? What about death? I have a friend of mine that works for a major firm that was in an armed robbery attempt. He almost lost his life within inches. The company said it was very clear that it cost them less for him to die at the arms of an armed robber than it was for him to use a firearm to defend himself. So officers are covered against individual and departmental claims. You could also work that out as well. They could also, your employees could sign an affidavit indemnifying the township. You don't have to cover me. If I'm going to have this firearm and I decide to do whatever the policy requires me to do it, men, female, it doesn't matter, I can indemnify them and carry my own insurance. There are insurance policies like out of Lloyd's of London, Affinity, Lockton, that would be able to purchase their own liability insurance. So the insurance policy idea is not going to work. It says here from Megan Burke, Good morning, all. I was just asked by a question by the DPW employee as what the township stance is on employees with concealed license permits. If I see a concealed carry holder, and I've been doing this for 23 years, teaching concealed carry renewals, I am very worried. I know that since I've been doing this, and when it went statewide in 2001, that I would say, in my opinion, and from my research, over 90 to 99% of the concealed carry holders have not taken the state-mandated minimum requirements. What we find out is you don't rise to the occasion. All our master instructors tell us when we travel, my wife and I, around the country. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. So these people that I meet, I have an overconfidence. It's very dangerous to have that overconfidence because I have a carry permit. When I hear that, I'm very worried. I'd rather have somebody that's brand new, that doesn't know anything, and I could work with them from the beginning. But you have a carry permit, what do you know? You don't really know much, and you need to hire a lot of training. Remember, an active shooter, if you had it in the building, only has to have two things. If you do the research on it, he just has the luck, and he has to be at the right place at the right time. If there's an armed guard there that has to take him out, he takes him out, or her. But what are the two things, the minimum that a person that's a defender that you have to discuss if you're going to have firearms? Not a carry permit. I can guarantee you, I can have you come to qualifications. Not just a carry permit. You got to be highly skilled at arms. That's when research shows that. And you got to have a willingness to be hurt, seriously hurt, or killed. Are those people willing to make that? Or have they gone through the training for that? The other thing is about, and I do appreciate, I know he's here today, Chief Kirsten. Thank you very much for your service. I do honor it. And I do have admiration and respect for one of his lead instructor who also has many times taught for me in my academy, civilians. Had a couple questions here. Let's cover them rather quickly. I'm hoping not out of time. I'm going fast. Thank you very much. The ultimate question will be, does our township insurance carrier say about this? Well, we already covered that. Indemnify the township. Let them get their own insurance. Number two, what type of rate increases will occur? That's on the individual. You don't have to indemnify them. Or check into your insurance, the same one you have for the police departments. Do we allow employees to carry, and what sort of transitional training do we require? I will offer to every single, with my academy, with all my specialized law enforcement as well as former military trainers, free training. But I will tell you that it's not going to be easy. It's a minimum of 4 hours. Do you know, and you should know, that when it was originally in Public Act 381 in 2000, which my wife really worked hard to get passed, was about 24 hours. The NRA set up with everything as a model, 24 hours, not 8 hours. And most don't even do but a few hours for training. My 40-hour training would be a pre-qualification. If you pass the pre-qualification, after 40 hours minimum, you have to complete a certification. If you can't do that, you will not get my certificate. These people will have more training than law enforcement. I've been teaching law enforcement. I worked with some of the best in the country. I honor and respect them. I've taught, and my wife and I have taught with law enforcement instructors. We've taught and trained alongside police officers and also reserve officers. For the last 12 years, I've actually been doing qualifications for reserve officers. This training far exceeds that. And what you're saying is my people in my Chesterfield Township, man or woman, no matter what department they're in, they far exceed what law enforcement does. If they can, and they can't prove it, and they can't get the certification, they shouldn't carry a gun. And if they can't pass the proper CPL class, they shouldn't even get that as well. Moving on, does the township assume liability? No, they would, for his or her actions, no, to be indemnified. What type of weapon do we allow? Obviously, I've never seen anybody for concealed carry, and I don't think you have, anybody else might have had, if you have concealed carry, 454 concealed Desert Eagle, they call it. I've never seen those. What we recommend is what law enforcement uses. Everything is based on what law enforcement. In fact, our training is based, even for my individual classes, Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards. Michigan State Police every year sets up firearm qualifications, both rifle, pistol, and shotgun. We need to, and this comes from Jeff Alfreds from the Police Officers Training Standards Training in Ohio. All concealed carry holders, which I believe should have at least passed the minute for qualification what a police officers carry. If police officers are carrying firearms in public, shouldn't somebody in public, whether it be open carry, constitutional carry, what they call that, constitutional carry is you can go open carry without a permit system and then go concealed, or permit carry, shouldn't they at least pass at least minimum qualification of a police officer? That's why the gun rights Nazis have beat us up, because we wanted everybody to prove where the bullets are going, where your kids and my kids are the backstop to their bullets. So a lot of people didn't like what we say, but we wanted, and that's training. I don't want to say make a lot of money at this. I will do everybody here for free, but you've got to be able to pass the qualification. These are just some of the questions that need to be answered. The conversation is interesting for sure, and I certainly do agree. So And by the way, the marijuana, you know that's a Class 1 narcotic. It's illegal by federal, and you have to pass civil service. So there's no question. Everybody should know that. If you got a marijuana card, you don't work here. And it's a lot of question, but you don't have a carry permit. You got a marijuana card, you don't carry a gun. So that part is even covered. So you do have pictures of the tasers. I have just a few last minute comments. 5 years ago, there was a shooting, December 14th, and I'll wrap this up. Sandy Hook Elementary. Adam Lanza came into the school, tragically killed the elementary school children. And after that, that was in December of 2012. In the spring of 2013, you all know him, I'm sure, Anthony Ferlini, former Harrison Township supervisor. He was our state representative, voted in twice. He's a career politician. I looked him straight in the eye with my wife being there and all his aides around. I said, I want to arm teachers. Not just arm everybody, give them a gun. You hear that a narrative on both sides? No, these people have to be qualified. They have to lock up the gun that you were asking about how and where they carry, when do they carry, what do they carry. This is all worked out in sets of training. Now, I looked at him and I said, I want to arm teachers, called it the Polkowski Bill. And I said, they have to be highly trained and only selected few of the things that I've talked about here. He laughed. He smirked to the point that his legislative aides were in shock. They went deer in headlights. So we're going to be wrapping this up. Now, when we fast forward 5 years later, everyone, including State Representative Jim Ralsford's taking my idea and saying we would like to have a proposal. He has a bill to arm teachers. Even President Trump has suggested we arm teachers. But again, in conclusion, I think it's a failed policy. You need to discuss it further, but I don't think anybody with a carry permit should carry it. I think you need to have extensive training. You have it offered to you, and a lot of certification qualifications that they must meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kolakowski. Any further public comment?
Any questions for me, or should I? Anybody else? Public comment?
This is on a debate.
Okay.
Not a bad, thank you.
On questions? All right, thank you very much.
No.
Public commentary? Don't forget to sign in and state your name.
We are still on item 6E. Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. Are we still on the guns for these employees?
Yes, Joe. Yes.
I have a question. Can I move that police officer right up here so he can face the door and protect me when I come to these meetings? And I'll save my comments to the 5 minutes later.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Just a brief thing I wanted to say here, a little anecdotal stuff, but my first government job was back in 2010 during the U.S. Census. I was an enumerator for the Department of Commerce. I was 18, and I worked in and around Chesterfield during the months of April through July, asking people for their data when they didn't submit their census forms. On 3 occasions, I had my life threatened. One of them was with a man who was intent on shooting me. He didn't brandish his weapon, but he said he was going to grab his gun if I didn't get off his property. All I was doing was just asking him if he was home and if I could see if I can get him to do the census paperwork. I don't know whether or not arming employees is the right thing or not to do, but I would have been a little bit more confident had I had some form of way of defending myself. Mind you, I was 18, and I had recently got done with my growth spurt from puberty, so I didn't have as much as what I have nowadays. And nowadays, I have military training as well as voluntary training in martial arts. So what I have noticed is by focusing on teaching people in non-lethal ways of defense, that is the first step toward seeing people be more responsible in ways of defending themselves. So often, and I'm proud to say that we here in Chesterfield have some of the best police officers around, and I have not seen any problems with any of our officers. But we do know from the national stage that there are a few bad eggs when it comes to law enforcement. We have seen people who should not be officers, who have ultimate authority and weaponry, and they have abused that power. So I can only imagine that by percentages, certain employees will be that factor as well. Yet we also, in our society, jump to the gun a lot of the times, both literally and metaphorically. Learning things about non-lethal defense could be a good stepping stone. Having people be trained in martial arts is one aspect. Sure, that's not going to help you 100 feet away from a person with an AR-15 shooting up a place, but if you get within 5 feet of an active shooter, whatever firearm they have is very, very limited if you can get close enough and take them down. And trust me, you'll be amazed at what even just a few weeks of martial arts training can do. You become superhuman. I have seen it both with my eyes, and I have done it. And it is insane. But with that, I also heard you talk about public works workers going into a hole with weapon. I can guarantee you that can be done. When I was in Afghanistan, we did many concrete pours, some of them several feet down, and I was more than knee high in concrete, and I had a firearm on my leg or at my hip later on when I got a better holster made in Afghanistan because the military suppliers were terrible at making holsters. And so having, it depends on the firearm, of course. Obviously it's very difficult if you have a rifle with you, but if you just have a standard M9 on your hip, you can actually work very respectively and responsibly. And with that, that's what I have to say about dealing with the issue on how you workplace with firearms. But also I would like to say for Trustee Joseph, if you want to focus on going through the Bill of Rights and everything, I would definitely encourage the township to focus a lot on the 10th Amendment, because I'm sure we can take back a lot of our power from the federal government and focus on the township level. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Trustee Domingue?
When this policy came out, I understand the liability issue, but I also understand people want to protect themselves. The world has changed. The world has changed drastically over the years. Trustee Anderson, you started in law enforcement before me. I'm still active in the field. The world has changed. And I feel that people who are trained correctly have the right to have a firearm on. Who they are, I don't know. The majority of people who carry a firearm, some do, some don't, I can't speak for everyone, they don't keep it in the open, they keep it concealed. It's just like the training when you go through as a police officer. So you're in a situation and you're off duty, and something happens in a bank, you don't know if somebody's standing behind you is an accomplice to a robbery, to another off-duty police officer. The main thing about carrying a weapon on you is to protect you and your safety. And I believe in that. There's all kinds of views. Everyone has different types of views. Say I'm been in law enforcement a long time. Chief Kirsten's been in it a long time. Trustee Anderson's been in it a while and then changed careers. Everyone has the right to their opinion, but if someone is properly trained and has the CPL or CCW, whatever what it used to be called, now called CPL, I believe you have that right. And that's my version. Thank you.
Trustee Vosper.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I was going to wait for my comments. I thought we had a motion on the floor, and I wanted to address it at the point of a motion. We don't seem to have that right now.
Ms. Vosberg, if you want a motion, I'm prepared to make a motion, so I don't know if that impacts your timing, but when it works my way, I do intend to make a motion, so.
Go ahead. Go ahead and make your motion.
Well, I didn't want to hijack your comments, but I didn't want to take them out of context either. If you were waiting for a motion to comment, I thought you were coming methodically down the board, but when she said that, I just wanted to indicate what my intentions were.
Trustee Joseph.
Mr. Supervisor, to me, again, I don't want to reiterate everything that, I said earlier. I heard from a very accomplished trainer, military man, somebody who's been around the block in this particular area, and some of the things that I heard him say were his belief that the statistic he gave was...
Point of information?
Yeah.
Are you going to make a motion? Otherwise, I'm going to speak.
Oh, please speak.
Okay, are you going to make a motion?
Yes.
Well, go ahead and make your motion, then we'll have a discussion.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion that we approve the policy involving firearms in the workplace, consistent with the information that was, the policy that was in our packet.
Motion by Trustee Joseph to approve the policy statement regarding firearms in the workplace, including in our packet. Is there support?
Support.
Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Treasurer Lopata. Discussion. Trustee Vosper.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I cannot support this motion and this policy here for some of the reasons that have already been stated. A big one is to put a sign out where it'd be as good as putting a sign out saying this is a gun-free zone. And in my opinion, that it's already been stated, that's denying our residents their rights to carry, and it also, and our employees, and it also just announces to the world of bad people that this might be a place they'd want to visit. I can't support this. Thank you.
Treasurer Lopata.
This policy does not make the township offices a gun-free zone. What it does is it does not allow the employees to carry to the into the workplace. Residents are still allowed, if they want to execute their Second Amendment rights, can carry within the township offices. This is not a gun-free zone, so that's a mistake. Second of all, after listening to a person that's training people that carry weapons and hearing that he doesn't feel safe when a CPL holder carries in the township, that kind of scares me. Second of all, I don't think an employee signing a waiver saying that they're going to assume liability is going to really mean anything in a court of law. And there's so many disconnects right now. I think the only safe thing to do is to have a policy, and then if somebody's got a better mousetrap, bring it to the board and undo the policy. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph. Okay. Trustee Anderson.
No, that's okay. I didn't want to. The statistic that Mr. Lafata picked up on was the exact one that I was talking about, which was the statistic given by the speaker was 99% of current CPL holders, based on their level of training, cause some apprehension. In terms of close combat shooting scenarios, active shooter scenarios, you're not anywhere near trained with the current CPL requirements or concealed carry requirements. That is, I think, the legislation's best attempt to put a minimum level of training in place and still allow somebody to exercise their Second Amendment rights in as reasonably, in a difficult issue, as reasonably safe as you can get. What we're talking about here is something completely different. Again, not a gun-free zone. We have guns that come in and out. They're carried, the ones we definitively know about, by individuals who are sworn officers that have received a level of training. This is policy that is consistent with every government agency that I've ever worked with. I don't know what they do in Sterling or at the Anchor Bay School District or some of the others. But the difficulty that I have here is when I worked with Children's Protective Services, I went out into the field and with court order removed people's children, placing them in foster care. Never felt more unsafe, and my employer made it very clear that in the commission of my duty, I was not allowed to carry a firearm. If there are issues involving direct or imminent danger, I was to notify local law enforcement who would accompany me in the execution of that court order. When I left that department and went to the state of Michigan in the Department of Corrections as a parole agent with concealed carry license, I was again told by my employer, it's great that you have a concealed carry license, but you can't carry on the job under our protective umbrella until you complete initial handgun training, which was probably, by the definition of the speaker, maybe still inadequate, but that was at least a week-long training where much of the training was spent on handgun retention. Much of it was designed to keep me safe from my own handgun. Best I can tell in the evaluation and post-wrap of the training, we spent a lot of time about how we keep my handgun from killing me, how you hang on to it. So to pretend as though we are somehow enhancing the safety of township employees by allowing them to carry is a tragic misnomer. And rather than debating this all night, I think the issue that caused me to bring this forward as a motion is whether it's supported by the board. I want to be very clear personally, my position, and I felt an obligation to do something in the way of keeping people safe. I believe that this keeps people safer, and I'm terrified that it was brought up in the request by our HR. We had an opinion of sorts by our police chief. We got an opinion by our attorney. We get an opinion by our insurance carrier, and we talk about Second Amendment. I don't want to be a martyr here. This is a minimum level of safety, and I couldn't go home tonight without at least putting the motion forward to a vote and allow people to, vote their conscience. But as Mr. LaFata said, if there's a better mousetrap and a better policy, I would look to see somebody bring that one forward at a subsequent meeting, and we can amend this as many times as we think we need to. But this is a minimum level, best first step. And again, thank you, Mr. LaFata, for actually bringing it to the board for action. And I strongly encourage people to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you.
We do have a motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Treasurer LaFata, to approve the attached policy statement regarding firearms in the workplace. Any additional comments from the board?
And Mr. Echeverry.
Trustee Anderson.
Just kind of interesting how an inquiry of an employee as to carrying a weapon at the workplace morphed into a Second Amendment issue. This should be looked at from the point of the safety of the employees here. Point brought up about training of CPL holders. Incident recently in Detroit. Ladies being drug out in the street by a pit bull. Well-meaning citizen goes into the house, retrieves his weapon, fires multiple times. Missed the dog, killed the woman. He was a CPL holder. So the thought is if we had somebody here with a gun, nothing would happen. That gets into an emotional frame of things. I do support this policy. It's a starting point. It doesn't make this a gun-free community. And I still believe we should look at the welfare, the best interest of our employees. What can we do to make this a more secure place for our employees as well as our residents? Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I understand the well-intentions that this policy is supposed to address, but I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake on several levels. In addition to the problematic inadequacies of the policy itself, there's no enforcement mechanism. There's no indication of how we would enforce it, how we would do it. There's a lot of unanswered questions still here, and I think putting a policy in place with so many unanswered questions is more troublesome than not putting anything in place at all. But In and above that, it is a Second Amendment issue. This policy would restrict some Second Amendment rights. Whether that's justified or not is a discussion that we've had here tonight. We are, if this policy is put in place, restricting Second Amendment constitutional rights. We're giving a lot of justifications for that, but that is in fact what we're doing. And perhaps it is justified. I think it's a discussion that is going to take a lot longer than the time we have here today. But I do not feel comfortable putting a policy in place to prevent our employees here from protecting themselves and from demonstrating and practicing their Second Amendment rights. I agree with Trustee Vosberg as well, and it's an argument that I've made, that once we make a policy statement like this, we are announcing to every bad guy with a bad intention that our people are vulnerable. They're unarmed, and there's open season on them. I am not comfortable putting a target on the backs of the people who work here. And that's what this does. They do seek out gun-free zones. That's clear. I'm not comfortable putting a policy in place that allows for that and does not provide some additional protection. Are we going to have some of our uniformed police officers here stationed at the township offices while people are working? That would make me feel better, because at least someone is there. There's some level of protection. If I'm going to take it away from our employees who work here, at least there's some level of protection there, but that wasn't brought up here. But even then, I would still feel somewhat uncomfortable with it, but better. What I feel completely uncomfortable with is taking away the ability of our employees who have families, and we all care about them as well, but families who love them, taking the ability away from them to protect themselves. That's something I'm just not comfortable with. I don't think that's a direction that we want to go in. I also agree with Supervisor Accavetti that I'm good with that first statement in this policy, but once you get past wanting to make this a firearms-free workplace, for all of those reasons, I just think that's the wrong direction to head in. And I understand the motivation, and I think that there's definitely some value there and some things to talk about in terms of the motivation for this policy, but I think the policy statement itself, as presented, is not the right answer.
Thank you. Quick wrap-ups. This issue it's bigger than our community. It's bigger than us, and I think it's very unfortunate that another issue that it divides us. It divides our community, it divides our board, it divides our team. And what I mean by the issue is bigger than us. There are forces and factors and laws and issues way above us on the political spectrum and on the public policy spectrum at the federal level, at the state level, that make restricting any law-abiding citizens' access to firearms via a concealed carry permit. It makes it very difficult in that there's holes everywhere else in the system. I am concerned about enforcement, even in communities that do have these policies. I have spoke with virtually every township supervisor in the county, and many municipal leaders in the state. And enforcement is an issue because, by definition, if you are carrying if you are a CCP permit holder, the weapon is concealed. If that weapon is shown, there are issues. All of the other parameters that go along with that, the zero tolerance, the responsibility that comes with those CCP holders are great. It's just a bigger issue than us. I know it, and it divides us. And it just touched a nerve with me because for years and years, I don't believe unarming law-abiding citizens that are trained, that are legally carrying a CCW is the solution to this problem. Now, at the federal level, state level, if they can get a grasp on the illegal use of firearms, the illegal folks out there, then maybe we revisit this. But in the environment we're in, this is untimely, it divides us, and I'm hoping we put it behind us here tonight. Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Treasurer LaFata to approve the policy statement regarding firearms in the workplace. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
No.
Supervisor Akavetti.
No.
Clerk Barry, no.
Motion fails. 6F, approve a request by the Parks and Rec Department from Life Handicap Outdoors to waive entrance and building rental fees at Brandenburg Park on June 23, 2018 for participants of the 24th annual program.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Demink,
Support.
support by trustee Vosberg. Discussion? Clerk Barry, please call the roll. Oh, trustee Vosberg.
I would, I'm assuming this will be passed, I would encourage everybody to put this on their calendar and stop by that day on Saturday, June 23, to see this fishing event. It's phenomenal. There are hundreds of participants. There are fishing poles all lined up along the pier, and kids just having a wonderful time fishing, and very proud of the fish they caught, and lots of fish stories that day.
Motion by trustee Vosberg, support by trustee Demink to approve the request by the Parks and Rec Department from Life Handicap Outdoors to waive entrance and building rental fees at Brandenburg Park on June 23rd, 2018. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. Motion
Clerk
prevails.
Barry, aye.
Oh.
No.
6G, approve a request by the Public Safety Department to pay an invoice from Macomb County Finance Department in the amount of $11,343.75 from General Ledger number 205-301.801. Director Kirsten. Oh, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Anderson,
Support.
support by trustee Vosberg. Director Kirsten.
This historical renewal, it's for our 800 radio system that we participate through the County of Macomb and through the State of Michigan. It's a subscriber fee for all the radios, both within the police department and the fire department.
Discussion? Motion by trustee Vosberg, support by motion by trustee Anderson, support by trustee Vosberg to approve the request by the Public Safety Department to pay an invoice to the Macomb County Department of Finance in the amount of $11,343.75. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion prevails.
Thank you.
6H, approve introduction and first publication of ordinance 169 granting Semco Energy Gas Company the authority to construct, maintain, and operate gas mains, pipes, and services within Chesterfield Township.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve introduction and first publication of ordinance number 169 as stated.
Motion by Clerk Barry. Support by Supervisor Akavetti. Discussion. Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I support this. Oh, and I see here, I wanted to just verify that this had been reviewed. I see that on the agenda now, on the first page. Thank you.
Motion by Clerk Barry, support by Supervisor Akavetti to approve the introduction and first publication of ordinance 169 granting Semco Energy Gas Company the authority to construct, maintain, and operate gas mains, pipes, and services within Chesterfield Township. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Motion prevails. There are no addendums. Item number 8, public comment. State your name and limit your comments to 5 minutes, and you can speak on any issue that's on your mind.
Good, I'm already up here. Long time no see. No, I just had a quick thing. Mostly this is for Clerk Barry in her office. Just wanting to make sure that the township has enough information out for the upcoming August primaries, because this is going to be the first time in several decades where it's going to be slightly different, in which case it's not just strictly a two-party primary situation because of access for the ballot for the Libertarian Party of Michigan. And just wanting to make sure that the township public knows the multi-party situation, and is up for the difference in, well, I wouldn't say it would be registration, but definitely that the ballot's going to be much different this time around. All right, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Miller, welcome back.
Testing, can you hear me? Now, I haven't heard half of what you've said tonight, or the other good people here in this meeting. But I read this article here about this here discussion about all these guns. Who has a gun in America, walks softly, and carries a big gun? Now, I've looked at that police officer here tonight for many years, and to find him wearing civilian clothes is I'm happy, because he would be probably our first victim if we had violence here. I really respect my law enforcement officers, and I was scared that they would be messed with. And it's been very nice to know that we have an armed police officer here at these meetings where some person might not be happy when they came to a meeting. 67 years ago this month, the United States Army Military Police School at Fort Gordon, Georgia, put a loaded gun in my hand, and I've lived with it for 67 years, serving my country. And how many people tonight are sitting around with loaded guns in their pockets? I would almost want to go down to the Chesterfield Township borders, Hall Road, Gratiot, and on Jefferson, and put up a sign, just like Arby's got a sign at the hamburger place. Chesterfield, we have the meat. No, that's Arby's, we have the meat. Chesterfield, we have the guns. I am scared for the employees of Chesterfield Township. They come to work here in this building. They're a group of people. And I would not hesitate to put a sign up in Chesterfield. This is not a gun-free zone. But I'm scared for the employees. I come in this building to pay my tax or pay a bill here to the cashier, and I worry if someone is trying to come in here to these employees. So my advice is for you people, I don't believe you can put liability where everybody can just walk around with a gun. Like, give everybody in the building a baseball bat, and anybody stands anything, start beating them on the head. And all you employees, look out for each other. You people have got a responsibility, and I thank you for discussing it. And I want to thank that old Navy man for getting up here and speaking loud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any additional comments from the public?
I'd like to ask you to amend your marijuana use ordinance 110-97. According to your ordinance, the only people that can grow medical...
So, could you state your name again?
Oh, Gerald Burak, 28673 Sunray Court.
Say it one more time.
Gerald Burak.
Okay.
There's a facility on my street, and it's pretty obvious to everyone on the street. It matters which way the wind's blowing because the odor that's being emitted. I think it'd be a lot less obvious if you let someone do it outdoors, and it'd be a lot more environmentally friendly. And New Baltimore allows this, and I don't see it creating wide-scale mayhem there. That's my point. That's the only thing.
Thank you. We do not have a back and forth during public comments, but we'll do the best we can at the end to...
Okay, and Roseville City Council wanted me to warn you about their drunk driving judge, Catherine Steenland, who breaks the law for Roseville Police Department, and they break the law for her. Prime example is last October 3rd, when she got into a hit-and-run accident, fled the scene and hid in her house, and they didn't take her to McLaren and find out just how drunk she was or how impaired she was. They break the law for her, she breaks the law for them. They just wanted me to come here and warn you about that. Thank you.
Any further comments from the public? Let's bring it up to the board. Trustee Demink, you have your list. Bring it up to the board for comments.
Real quick, ma'am, do you have something to say?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, good.
That's
Can you
what I
come
was
up
trying to
to
say,
the-
Mr.
okay.
Supervisor, because I know she tried something. It's the drains. Sorry.
Hi, my name's Mrs. Case, and I live on Lake Point Street. And I was in here a few weeks ago, and the water was backing up in my yard and everything, and I came in and I complained about it, and I'm so grateful to the gentleman that came out and took care of it and got the water going, and it was, what a blessing, because my neighbors were helpless too. They're handicapped, and I couldn't really do anything about it. I wanted to, but I just don't have the power. I'm not strong like a man. And I was just so grateful for you guys to send people out to help me out and get that taken care of. God bless each and every one of you. And as far as guns and everything, they're so dangerous. And like Mr. Anderson was saying, a lot of times they go the opposite way, which you would intend them to go. So we have to be so careful. Being a Christian, I pray and trust God that He puts His angels over us and a hedge around us and protects us each day and night. God bless you, and thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the board or from the public? Bring it up to the board. Trustee Demink.
Okay, got my orders from Amanda tonight. The Parks and Rec Department's 2018 Spring and Summer brochure is officially available to review. Visit the Parks and Rec's website at parksandrec.chesterfieldtownship.org. Registration opens April 4th. Summer day camp registration began last week and is filling up fast. This weekly camp runs from June 18th to August 24th for children ages 5 to 11. Every day is packed with action and something new, and campers can expect to have a summer filled with giggles, games, friends, crafts, and a little bit of learning as well. There will be daily activities for all interests, 2 weekly field trips, pizza Fridays, and much, much more. Call Parks and Rec at 586-949-0400, extension 4 for further details. Also, at the last board meeting, I made an announcement that we have an opening on the library board, and we had a member step down because they were moving out of the township, a long-time member, and I'm just reiterating again, if someone is interested in being appointed to the library board, send a letter with your reasons to Elizabeth Madden, our librarian at the Chesterfield Township Library, and that will go in front of to her and the library board. As of that, this will be the last meeting, so Easter's coming up. I wish everyone a safe and happy Easter holiday. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mrs. Case. And our DPW does a great job when these crises occur, and I know that what happened about 3-4 weeks ago, just unfortunately that much water with nowhere to go, and luckily you can find your backyard again like a lot of us. I'm glad to hear that. Last comment I want to talk about tonight's discussion brought up by an employee that ended up, seemed like it was an assault on the Second Amendment. I found those debates personally somewhat misleading and emotional. The state of Michigan has some of the most liberal statutes regarding open carry and issuing of CPLs, CCWs to the old folks. Good thing we're not the Wild West that we all don't utilize that permission. But at the same time, the state of Michigan does allow regulation of firearms in the workplace, and that was what being addressed tonight for the safety of the employees as well as the public. And With that, I'll wish everyone a happy Easter. Thank you.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Follow up on some of the Park and Rec announcements. This coming Saturday, everyone's already registered. For those who have registered, will be here for breakfast with the Easter Bunny. But the Historical Village is also going to be open. So anyone that would like, any member from the public who would like to see the schoolhouse or the chapel, those two buildings will be open this coming Saturday from about 9:30 until about noon. And that's also your opportunity for those who are using that passport program where you get a stamp, and after getting 7 stamps, you get a free lunch at Culver's. You can get, that's the date, you can get that stamped as well. And then, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to just ask that we continue this discussion perhaps with our attorneys and/or risk management, the insurance company, that we had the discussion we had on the guns in the workplace, because it was originally brought up because of a matter of government immunity and our liability. And I think that there was some good discussion brought up tonight, and we need to continue looking at that until we feel that we have a resolve that does protect our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Joseph.
Thank you. Again, we talked about it at great length, and I don't want to rehash the entire argument, but I did want to apologize. In the course of my sort of support for the motion, I made a misstatement, and I don't know that it's fair to say when I indicated that our insurance carrier and our attorney has offered us an opinion. Mr. Siebert is a very skilled attorney. He does great work and has for our township for many years. The policy that he was consulted on, I don't know what his personal opinion is or his professional opinion. He was simply asked to draft a policy, a proposed policy, and he didn't offer support of my motion or the policy. He did as he always does, and he responded to the request. So it was a misstatement, and I apologize, Mr. Siebert. Also, Ms. Vosberg, your reservation of your comments until there was a motion, I didn't mean to be out of line there either. So I was a little confused at your request, but in terms of the overall debate, I think it was a good one, and I disagree with you, Mr. Supervisor, in the slightest in this regard. I don't think it divides us. I think that we're a deeply concerned and committed board. I believe every member of this board feels very strongly about everything that comes before us for deliberation. And we had a very respectful debate, and we covered a lot of issues that a lot of our residents are hearing about and talking about as they are big national news. So, I said it as a candidate, I said it when I was at the podium as a citizen. Anytime a panel of people agree unanimously, if every vote is 7-0, then it becomes apparent to those that put us here that maybe there's only one brain and we're all sharing it. So I like robust debate, and I don't take offense. There's no division. There are strongly held beliefs. I would in the future, if we engage in this, and I hope that we do, as Trustee Vosberg pointed out. I didn't like, as I think Trustee Anderson was a little uncomfortable, this argument of a Second Amendment encroachment. Those are fighting words for a lot of us. A number of us are concealed weapon carrier permit holders, we're NRA members, we believe very strongly in the Second Amendment, but when you're talking about work rules and liability, your suggestion of bringing a Second Amendment is really the equivalent of saying if an employee disagrees with a directive from their supervisor, that under the First Amendment they can peacefully protest and make picket signs and walk up and down saying that they disagree with their supervisor. And the suggestion that that's not permitted use shouldn't be inclusive of, well, you're encroaching on First Amendment rights. So now you're anti-Bill of Rights and anti-First Amendment. They are work rules, and they are very specific work rules, and I look forward to a continuing debate on that issue. So again, great board meeting, and I appreciated everybody's comments, with the exception of the Second Amendment issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. Treasurer LaFatta.
I still think there's been a mistake made, but let me turn my mic on. I don't know how many of you have been involved in an active shooting but your heart rate pegs, your body sweats profusely, and you get dry mouth. And I've witnessed on occasion first occurrences for some people, they shoot in a direction wildly. It's called friendly fire. People get hurt. Have you ever witnessed somebody get hurt by accidental discharge of a firearm? It happens. The more occurrences happen, more guns in the place. Have you ever heard about violence in the workplace? Violence in the workplace happens a lot when one employee has a gun and another one doesn't. Who protects the employee that decides that he doesn't want to carry a gun to work? There's a lot to take in consideration, and this is long from being settled. There's a lot to take in consideration, and talking about Second Amendment rights isn't the right one. Thank you.
Clerk Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Couple of updates from the Clerk's Department. Yes, we will be providing all of the information on the upcoming elections on our website. We are also linking to all the State of Michigan Secretary of State resources that will allow people to actually see their ballot before they come to the polls. So if you didn't know that, as soon as the ballot is available and issued, we will also link to that so you can look and see exactly what your ballot looks like, right down to the precinct. You can see who's running for precinct delegate for all three parties that are going to be on the ballot in August. You'll be able to see all the ballot language. You'll see all of the candidates for all of the other offices as well. So yes, all of that information is going to be available. I encourage you to take a look at our new website. It's wonderfully improved and gives a lot of information that's easy to find, and the election information is some of that information. So I encourage you to check that. Also, as of April 2nd, the price for processing passports will be raised by the Department of State from $25 to $35 for the processing part. That's the amount that you pay Chesterfield Township as a passport agent for processing that passport. In anticipation of that, we are giving all of our residents and all the entire public, for that matter, the opportunity to come in on March the 28th. We are going to be holding late night hours until 7:30 that day for you to come in, and it's your last chance, Charlie, to come in and get your passport at the lower rate before the rates rise on April 2nd. So March 28th will be late night passport night here at the township offices from 4:30 all the way until 7:30. Also, our women's self-defense class is scheduled for this coming Thursday. That is a very, very successful community enrichment program that's being offered by your township board, and it was booked completely solid within 24 hours of its announcement. So a lot of interest in that class. The new season of community enrichment programs has also been developed. We will be bringing back popular programs such as the Color Tour in the fall, also women's self-defense. Also, in response to a lot of inquiries, we will be adding a second women's self-defense class this summer, as well as an advanced self-defense class. So for those folks who have taken our introductory program, there's going to be a second class that will be offered in advanced self-defense. And those are all taught by our fabulous officers over at the police department. Lieutenant Franks and Officer Lee, who are fantastic. They're like a comedy tag team. They're a lot of fun, but they're going to teach you a lot of great information. And we're very, very fortunate to have them and thank them for taking the time to be able to offer that to our residents at absolutely no cost whatsoever. Most of the community enrichment programs have no cost. They cover a variety of subjects, and we've taken some of the most popular ones from the first season and we put them in season 2. So please check our website and look for those. We're very excited to offer them to you. Thanks.
Thank you. I was going to not say anything tonight, but I did want to thank Trustee Joseph for your comments. We just discussed, in just about any context, one of the most difficult, divisive, if it can be allowed to be, issues, and that isn't simple and is very complicated and dynamic, and I think we did so with a lot of respect. So I thank you for that, and I thank Treasurer LaFata for bringing it. He's passionate. He saw a problem, and This is where ideas and discussion like that should occur. And I think we showed how it could get done and should be done. Next meeting is on April the 2nd. Have a happy Easter. And with that, we are going to move on to item 10, which is the closed session. Discussion 10A, discussion regarding strategy and negotiations of collective bargaining agreements pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Motion to go in closed session.
Motion by trustee Demink.
Second.
Support by clerk Barry. We have a motion to go into closed session and second by clerk Barry. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. We are in closed session at 8:46 PM. Motion to re-enter open session.
Motion to re-enter open session.
Second.
Motion by clerk Barry, support by trustee Demink to re-enter open session. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. We are back in open session at 9:13 PM. Item number 11 is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
trustee Vosberg, support by trustee Anderson to adjourn. All those in favor, say
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned at 9:14 PM.
Thank you, Bob.